Woke, woke. There are so many things going on around. You must take heed. It's been written and prophesied about, so you must believe. Not everything that glitters is gold. Pay attention as it's been told. Join us every Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, with Brother Yusuf as he tackles and breaks down current events, current news, and politics, and the Islamic Ummah. Please join us, streaming on all major platforms. Channel Sunnahfollowers.
You will, of the Western nations, making Islam look, they're here to conquer you. Look, they're here to conquer. They want to take your women. They want to enslave you. Look how they're mocking you. It's all, again, leading us to this civil war. That's what they want. We talked about this last week with the immigration. I mentioned the quotes. I showed what the Zionists said. They used Muslim by name. They said we are going to use Islam and Muslims as a catalyst, the reactive substance, if you will, to stir up the reaction to get the civil war and the destruction of Europe and the West. And this praying in public is just another thing, to do that. It's just antagonizing. It's, and Sister Layla pointed out, disgusting. Let's say you're not even antagonizing. If you did this in any decent place, not New York City, obviously, not Paris, France, and these places where you have nothing but filth and degeneracy and sin, and this is a place you want to prostrate and put your head, and it's just beyond disgusting. So we will turn today. I got a lot of requests to cover Trump's speech to Congress that took place this week. To be honest with you, I did not watch it live because most of it is hollow rhetoric. But when I received the request, I did read the transcript and I did make some bullet point notes to discuss tonight. A lot of the speech was on the surface level was actually very good. Were policies that actually would benefit us here in the United States. A lot of them, obviously, I've talked about over the last few months. We will get to the little kind of slip-ins he put in there at the end, directed toward Islam and kind of foreshadowing where we are going with the Gaza situation and ultimately their end result. So again, he started off, as he always does. Biden did the same thing when he came in. America's back. So by stating that, you're obviously stating America's been gone. To be back, you must have been gone. And again, anyone who goes to the grocery store, anyone who pays rent these days, anyone who's living in this nation pretty much knows this for certain, that the country is going on the wrong track. So this, again, is classic political rhetoric. You start off with a boom, right from the beginning. Don't worry, trust me, we are back. Good days are coming. It's classic psychology, brilliant way to open a speech. You get the audience hook, line, and sinker. And again, this speech was clearly directed to his base, to the MAGA Republicans. So he started off with that, and then he went on to go over border security, and he talked about the crossings are record lows. We've never seen this low before. Now, again, I don't buy that. We don't know how many people have been coming in the country. We don't really have any idea. They have no census, obviously. There's no questionnaire that you fill out when you illegally sneak in. So to claim basically that there's the lowest border crossings ever, is obviously not true. But again, the people will buy it because he said it with conviction. Again, he's not talking about the illegals that are coming in on the planes, the phony refugees, and all the other stuff that we've talked about here in the past. As always, this event, as Sister Layla's clip there shows, it turns into a complete crap show. The same thing when Biden was in there. There's this illusion that they want us to get sucked into, that these two parties, they hate each other. They're at the will. They both want what's best for the people, but they just can't agree. And again, we saw Democrats with theatrics, grandstanding, all the usual things. And we saw the same thing when Biden was in from the other side. Again, it's whipping up the tribal nature of us as human beings. My team, their team, let's have that clash. When in the end of the day, they're all robbing us blind, and they will continue to do so. So I hope tonight to kind of bring in behind the scenes of what some of these things really mean or are going to offer us. He did talk about eliminating all assistance to Ukraine. Obviously, I talked about this before. This is the right move. Everything about this war, we've covered details of it here and there, is highly suspicious, highly questionable, money laundering operation. We've already seen massive amounts of innocent Ukrainians forced to the front lines to die for this meaningless war. We've seen hundreds of billions of dollars being spent of our taxpayer money that could go to improving our communities, liberating our people from drugs and other addictions and vices. I mean, so much potential could have been unlocked with our money. It's our money. Again, we're not asking for someone else's money. This is our tax dollars here that have been, going to these foreign countries for these foreign wars for far too long. So again, he talked about this. He also talked about removing the protections of the Ukrainians, which again, under international law, if the country's still at war, he's not going to be able to do that. This is red meat for the base. He talked about the price of eggs, and this is very key because the eggs have kind of become synonymous, haven't they, with the state of this country in terms of our grocery bills. I mean, my grocery bill now has more than tripled since the COVID scam in 2019, 2020. I remember during that period of time, you get 12 eggs was 79 cents. I usually bought the 18. The 18 was like $1.30. And I even remember Ramadan in 2022, I had bought eggs for my family at $3.19 for 30. We are now seeing eggs, I mean, in amazing levels. We're talking the other day, those 30 eggs, I paid $3.19 in Ramadan in 2022. This Ramadan, those same 30 eggs are now $16.79. Last I checked, they may be higher. And this, again, is two reasons. One, obviously, is inflation, but inflation is not that much. The hidden thing here is what they're doing behind the scenes. During the Biden administration, not saying that Biden had anything to do with this, this is all black ops, part of the plan. Joe Biden didn't even know where he was half the time, whether he even had a coat on or not, much less was some kind of a mastermind of all these things. He was just a senile puppet that was rolled out there to take the blame. But we saw so many production facilities mysteriously burning down, catching fire. We saw 150 million chickens massacred in the last half of 2024. And what was the justification? This phony, overplayed bird flu, where they were using, guess what? The same exact phony test that they used for COVID to whip up the cases and the hysteria to justify the lockdowns. They used Carrie Mullis's PCR test. What happened to Carrie Mullis? We're going to talk about that story after Ramadan. We get into the COVID scam in a little bit more detail. A lot of you have asked me to talk about that, and we will. He died right before COVID. Wink, wink, no coincidence there. So the creator of the test that they used to justify COVID died before they rolled out the test. Why? That's a very big piece of the puzzle, isn't it? And they're now using that test to whip up the hysteria for the chickens having this bird flu, which justified the massive culling of them. So that's why you're seeing the eggs through the roof. They've tried to make eggs and butter and healthy natural foods seem bad for decades. They don't want us eating certain foods that are very nutritious, very dense, loaded with vitamins, all kinds of healing properties. They don't want you eating that. But they don't ever go after, any of the other junk that we see being marketed, such as sugar and the candies and the stuff that comes in a box or a bag. You never see anything talking about that, but they go after your eggs, they go after your butter, your healthy fats, and all of these things. All, again, a war on our health, a war on our soul. He also, of course, without coincidence, mentioned Elon Musk. He talked about the Dodge organization and the programs of cutting all this excessive waste. Now, at face value so far, this seems quite good. I read out a lot of those things a few weeks ago that we were funding, and a lot of it was transgendered, homosexual promotions. Where? In Muslim countries, third world countries. They were trying to spread this LGBTQ disease. We talked about what went on in Pakistan. They funded some there. In Peru, it was all over the place. In Africa as well, which he highlighted in this speech, using our tax dollars to fund and promote the LGBTQ agenda around the world, spreading the disease, quite literally, here. So again, we're going to have to see where this goes. He did exaggerate the numbers. He said it was a lot more money than it actually is. A lot of fact checkers exposed him for that. So he did cover that, and so far, like I said, so good when it comes to this. He requested more money for deportations. Again, this seems good at face value, but again, we have the power to force these nations to take their own people back. These nations receive tons, millions, and billions in some cases of foreign aid from the United States. The U.S. taxpayer should not have to have his taxes raised to support basically deportation efforts for people who never should have been allowed in here in the first place. These nations of those people should take their own people back. And we've seen this sometime play out where once you put a little bit of economic pressure on them, they more than willingly roll out the map to do so. So this is something, again, he talked about tax cuts, again, for the wealthy. More are going to disproportionately benefit from there. Police protections, new crime bills. I mean, I think anyone who lives in this society would agree stricter punishments for criminals is definitely something the United States needs. We have now a culture, particularly in blue states, where people now just walk into stores and just start stealing. They have to lock everything up. California had it to where I think if you had to steal over $800, something like that, before you'd even be charged. So you saw just massive amounts of theft going on left and right. This country has become such a joke when it comes to law and order and crime. But again, I need to see the details to see if this is rhetoric, to see exactly what he's planning on doing, or what his handlers, I should say, are planning on doing. He did mention one thing in there about English being the official language of the United States. Again, this is a good thing. I've had a lot of conversations with brothers and sisters here. We talked about struggling with jobs. We talked about struggling to get services where you're constantly having to accommodate people who refuse to learn the language. No nation can benefit from this. So again, I don't disagree with Trump on this point. Bill Clinton in 1998 had passed an order requiring all government offices to make these services mandatory, which again discouraged people from actually learning English. If we get rid of this and make it up to those agencies, whether or not they want to spend, because again, we're paying for it, to translate for these people who come here, some live 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and they refuse to learn the English language. You can have no community that way. You can have no camaraderie. You can have no brotherhood, no unity, no nothing if you can't understand each other. And this is a big difference that we've seen in the last 20 to 30 years. I can go now to the malls and I'll walk by and I won't hear English spoken for large sections. I hear languages, I don't even know what language they're even speaking, but those people do not speak English. People who've been here, again, double-digit years, decades, being accommodated, and we're paying for it. Again, money that could be very, very well spent on improving the life of Americans. He came down on the woke culture, which again is antithetical to Islam. If anyone's familiar with the woke culture, I've chronicled it here at length. Discrimination against white Americans, racial quotas, sexual-based quotas. Even when I was applying for a job recently, they even asked me on the digital application if I was gay. That's how far under the Biden administration this stuff was going. So it's like disqualifier, oh, plus you're gay. We'll interview him. Well, whether being homosexual or not has anything to do with my ability to do my job, my ability to articulate information, to manage and organize. I can't find the connection, but they feel free to ask this now. And getting rid of this stuff and bringing it back to merit is where this country should always have been. In this mess, once and for all. I don't care if you're black, white, green, yellow, pink. You're better at the job, you get the job, you've got better qualifications, better skills. That's what should matter in the end of the day. Again, he didn't say anything negative here. The Paris Climate Accord, he did take aim at that. If you're familiar with my work, I've mentioned here and there over the last couple of years working on this platform off and on, of what a big scam the global warming is. They've never proven this. The whole sea level thing was all exposed as one big giant fraud. All this is about is lowering our standard of living. Countries like China and India can basically manufacture at will with little to no regulation. And we, on the other hand, were just chained, shackled basically with regulation after regulation, making manufacturing not profitable in this country and ultimately targeting our standard of living. This climate hoax is a big tragedy on the face of this earth right now, to be honest. And they really got a lot of momentum for this over the last 4 years. Anything that can put a slowdown in that and give us more time to wake people up is obviously a good thing. But overblown, hyped, never proven, and anything getting rid of us from that would be a beneficial thing. Now, he did mention something. There's a lot of stuff coming in here now for the first time. He talked about getting the toxins out of our body and the toxins out of our minds from school. And he heralded Bobby Kennedy, who is basically going to be the one who's going to get to the bottom of it. Well, Bobby Kennedy, as I told my coworkers, don't believe a word this man says. He sounded really great before he got in there. He was talking about real issues, additives and dyes and poisons in our foods. American food, a lot of it can't even be sold around the world. A lot of our food we can't even sell in Europe. It's too toxic. It's too poisonous. We have too many horrible ingredients in our foods to even pass other standards of other nations. And yet we're serving them to our people. And Americans are some of the most sick, obese, ill, mentally and physical people on the face of this earth. This disease, as I've chronicled, is now spreading to the Muslim Gulf countries as they are adopting Americana hook, line, and sinker. So what has RFK or Bobby Kennedy done since he's been in there? Well, he made a connection between anti-Semitism and mental health. And I don't think that when he was, lobbying to get in this position, that this is what the American people asked for, but yet this is what he's doing. He's automatically saying now, if you harbor any anti-Semitic views, which what is anti-Semitism? It's just simply criticism of the state of Israel and their policies. The list is so broad, I could fill up 3 hours here going through the criteria of what anti-Semitism in their definition is. They're already using this to kick people off college campuses, get them out of school, get them deported in some cases for showing pro-Palestinian sentiments. So again, behind the rhetoric, you often see things. So you hear face value, get the dyes out of the food, get the poisons out of the food. But then the man that's going to do it is saying things like this. He did talk also in his speech about the military recruitment is up again, which is all part of the plan. And I wasn't doing videos during this period of time. It was about last December, the end of 2024. I had noticed that they all of a sudden were having white males back in the military recruitment ads for the U.S. and for England. Because at the end of the day, they wanted another Zionist war. They've been whipping this thing up for quite some time. Gaza is kind of the ground zero for where they want this thing to spread. And they want white men ultimately to die for this. And white men have just increasingly rejected serving this system. I know personally I would never allow my sons to ever join this military. I myself never joined it. I have no place in their army. Their wars are not my fight, both as a Muslim and both as an American citizen of Caucasian European descent. You are asking me to lay down my life to expand the Zionist empire, to serve Zionist interests. And guess what? They're not going to, of course, be pushing the immigrants to do this. They're targeting specifically white European men for this. And now, because Trump is back, he's again the selling piece, the mouthpiece. America's back. It's great. It's great again. It's going to be a great, fair, and equal country. Come join our army. And you see how they're now trying to whip this up. Then he came out, and now you get to the Muslim part. He talked about Islamic terror and the Middle East. He heralded the ceasefire. Obviously, he took credit for it. I said he would do this before he even got in there. How predictable it all was. He also said later in the week, when asked about Israel and the United States joint efforts in Gaza, he said, just wait and see, with kind of this kind of smirk on his face. So again, they know where they're going. They've always known where they're going. The Gaza operation, if anyone again is familiar with my work, there was not a single aspect of Islamic terror behind any of that. It's now been disclosed. It's open. You can see the information available online. The Zionists have pretty much admitted now they attacked their own people. They fired on their own people to then frame it. The hand glider episode, you go back to the Economist magazine in 2012, they had the hand glider on there with Netanyahu battling Hamas 12 years ago. So at this point, almost 13 years now. They call their shots always. They tell you what they're going to do, sometimes decades before they actually do it. This hand glider cartoon was on the Economist magazine entitled The Road to Hell back in 2012. The hand glider footage that they showed during these October 7th attacks has been exposed also as being training drills in North African countries. One of them, I believe, was Libya. So the Zionists have pretty much admitted they fired on their own people and they tried to provoke a response. They framed it. The motto of Mossad is basically, by deception, we shall make war. And again, they pulled it off here. So now he's turning the table. Where's this Islamic terror threat that he speaks of? Obviously, they are going to stage their stuff as they always do and always have, because we're not seeing this massive, unified, collective Muslim response. In fact, we're seeing the opposite. We are seeing every single Muslim country laying out the red carpet for the Zionists, laying out the red carpet for the agenda. So where's this Muslim terrorist attack that he's speaking of? They're, of course, going to create one. There are two ways. They're either going to completely stage it, or they're going to fund a group who's going to do it, and then Islam is obviously going to take the blame. As Sister Layla said in the opening before we came live on this one, she talked about how there is a war on Islam. Last week, I talked about the Civil War. We mentioned it briefly here as well. In the West, the praying in the streets, antagonizing, creating a climate of division. And this is how they're, of course, going to do this. We're already seeing the coordinates are being laid out as we speak. So now we'll turn the tables off of Trump. We still got a couple more things. We're going to talk about Ramadan here, some other things that have been going on in social media. And we're going to look, of course, at my favorite Muslim, Andrew Tate, and some brief things about what he's been up to, mocking our religion and continuing to be defended and promoted by supposed Muslims in the West. So we've completed this week, as Sister Layla was talking about at the close of the first week. I call Ramadan the Great Reset. The reset of all of our habits. I've had a fantastic week. And we're going to talk about some of the benefits, again, that I've witnessed in myself. And I want to share those stories here with you guys and try to get some of your feelings about it and understand the deep Islamic message behind Ramadan. But from the first day, I started noticing on social media, we had Christians out in force mocking Ramadan. We saw so many of these trying to, again, they're doing it. They're trying to create this conflict. They are posting iftar videos of Ramadan, entitling it, a 30-day period where Muslims skip lunch. And they were mocking the fast, how the fast was easy. And they compared it to their Lent fast and how the Lent fast was so much more complex. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, see how complex that is. But just totally, again, disrespecting us during a time that they know is sacred. You never see us in the Islamic hemisphere, so to speak, attacking their religious practices unless it involves some aspect of shirk or polytheism, something to that effect. But these guys are out here in force attacking, Ramadan. When I talk mostly to Protestant Christians, as an example, most of them are interested. Granted, what they are behind my back, as Allah talks about in the Quran, some people say and pretend one thing to your face, and they're completely different when they're away from you with their brethren, if you will. But I've received interest. Oh, no water, the usual questions. You do this for 30 days. But you see a lot of these people that are doing these attacks in social media, are particularly the Catholic and the Orthodox. They seem to be the most vicious, internationally at least, against Islam and mocking us and mocking our religion. So that's a very important point. Well, their Lent, what is their Lent? Well, basically in Lent, this commemorates the 40 days in the New Testament where Jesus was supposedly tempted by Shaitan in the wilderness. He survived that temptation, obviously. Well, during this period of months, they pretty much become a vegetarian. They don't eat meat. They don't eat fish. They won't eat oil on certain days. They don't drink alcohol like they should be doing it through the rest of the year, but that's one of the many sacrifices, they make. And of course, it varies between sects. Some have more strict requirements. Some say only a couple days a week. Some will go on and do the entire time. And again, anytime you have a bid'ah, you're always going to have different clashes on how far the bid'ah should go or how less it should go. Because none of these Christian practices or orders for this Lent are found in the pages of their holy books. In fact, this Ash Wednesday, which we saw this weekend, where they paint the cross on their head to commemorate the start of this period of time, you find no evidence of this until the 8th century. So we're talking 800 plus years in the case after the death of Esau that they are now commemorating him with a new ritual. In fact, the cross is even more newer than that, using the ashes to depict the cross. This was found in America less than 100 years ago. So again, it is what it is. And that's what's interesting is they are coming out here and mocking us. Well, you don't see this same thing going on with us. We are not doing it. I've never seen one Muslim prominent in social media come into a Christian forum and make fun of their fasting. We don't make fun of anyone who has, commitment and discipline when it comes to pleasing the one and only God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't have any objections. We may disagree with their methodologies and may want to provide them with guidance, but you don't see us mocking, ridiculing, making fun of them the same way we were seeing Islam attacked. And a lot of it I see is a jealousy. A lot of Christians are very jealous when they look at us because they see how committed we are, how seriously we take our relationship with our Creator. Muslims are very focused. Even you have your Ramadan-only Muslims. You have Muslims that throughout most of the year, they're not very strict. They don't pray all the time. But then in Ramadan, they come back and they practice at least for these 30 days. And a lot of them, they carry it on. That's why I call Ramadan, again, the Great Reset. So they get serious during this time of year and they get that dedication back. Not only are we fasting, we're not just skipping lunch. We're going, in some cases, from 5 a.m. all the way to 8 p.m. We're going basically over 12-hour period, 14, 15. In some of your Northern Hemisphere countries, even longer than that. And then the brothers will go to pray Tarawih in the evening and supplicate their Creator for another hour. Our entire day is dedicated to worshiping and honoring and pleasing our Creator, and they just don't have this. The churches are empty. No one's fasting. I haven't met a Christian who's fasting in 10 years during any of these occasions. I've never met a Muslim who wasn't fasting during Ramadan. So again, it's one of those aspects that's quite interesting when you see those who are attacking us, mocking us when their entire belief is built on bid'ah. So that was something I observed. It's been going on all week. It got really a lot of traction, in social media. We were seeing this. And I just don't want any brothers and sisters to get sucked into this. It's all about inducing negativity, inducing anger. This is a month of beauty. This is a month of returning to center of our spirit and shackling off all of these desires that bind us. And so what does Ramadan mean to me, as I wanted to cover tonight, and what I gained for it? Well, firstly, we honor Ramadan, of course, because in Surah Baqarah 185, we find that this is the month where the Quran was revealed. That reason alone is enough to commemorate Allah, to commemorate the beauty of his revelation, giving us that last and final revelation and giving us that guidance. But one of the hidden gems here is that we remove the worship of the dunya, realizing that these desires are simply nothing but survival instincts that Allah gave us. And in giving into these desires at all times, we are setting ourselves up for destruction. How many times has someone here, after iftar, sat and felt to themselves, I waited my whole day for this? We learned the lesson that these desires are simply not the be-all, end-all. I have this conversation with myself almost every single time I break the fast. It is a beautiful reminder that this stuff is hollow. it means nothing. And it gets deeper as we're going to get into here in a second. I've anticipated, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I can't wait to break, I can't wait to break. Then when you break, you're kind of like, really? This is what I spend my whole life craving: food, gluttony, eating, sitting down, relaxing, doing nothing productive, not having remembrance of the law, not being active and doing good deeds and doing good works. Very, very powerful, message there. And this is a key hadith that really kind of expands upon this. When Allah's messenger said about food, he said, we learn in Sahih Bukhari, the messenger of Allah had said, a believer eats in one intestine, and the kafir or the hypocrite eats in 7. That is so powerful beyond words of the difference between a practicing Muslim and a kafir. We eat in one intestine, they eat in 7. Never in human history have we faced such a challenge. Television, billboards, magazines, websites, all encouraging us to eat, eat, eat. People now in this day and age, they eat because they are bored. They eat because they have nothing else to do. They eat for fun. Going to restaurants has become a social ritual. Every time you're driving down the street, there's billboards. You watch the television. It's advert after advert encouraging you eat, eat, eat. You want beef? Go get it. It's right there. It's available for you. I've talked, and those of you who watched me from the beginning, I talked about the history of the companions. And we went through the times of famine during the time of Umar and all the suffering that went on where food was very limited. And Umar had refused, may Allah be pleased with him, refused to eat things that were not available to his brethren. To the lowest of the low. Umar said, it's not good enough for them, it's not good enough for me. If they can't have it, I don't have it. We see in Islam, we've always been priding ourselves on restraint, on recognizing the hollowness of this dunya. And we're now seeing everything is turning, completely on its head, where a holiday, honoring our restraint from this, our evolving from this, the sense of pride that we should have when we walk around in public. When I go out in public and I'm fasting and I'm in the grocery store or I'm doing my errands and I see all the other people are giving in day after day after day to their desires, and I know that I'm fasting for the sake of Allah, I walk around with my chest up. It is a tremendous sense of pride. We are better morally, spiritually, physically. We should be the pinnacle of human health, creativity, ingenuity, and everything else that matters in life. We are the best. We are the best of people ever brought up on the face of this earth. And we should take tremendous pride, not let others shame us, try to ridicule us. And when I tell people about Ramadan, as I kind of briefly alluded to early, they often come to me with shock. Oh, I could never do that. I could never not eat when I want. I can never not drink when I want. And that really is the difference. The 7 intestines versus the 1 intestine. We consume less. We get only what we need to survive. We are not a gluttonous people. We are not a materialistic people. And this, again, I can't emphasize it enough, should be a tremendous source of pride for us and our ummah of who we are, what kind of people we have the potential to be. And as I showed a few weeks ago, the obesity rate now in the Muslim nations is through the roof. We are being turned into the kuffar. That's what Muslim 2.0 was all about. We are being tricked, in indirect ways, using our desires against us to emulate the kuffar in dress, in language, in the way we communicate, the way we behave, the activities that we enjoy, and how we live our lives. And this is that reset opportunity to really remember who we are supposed to be. And it's, again, should be a tremendous sense of pride, for everybody who is partaking this. But as always, the shaitan is going to invert that and turn Ramadan into a celebration of gluttony. You see the masses celebrating the masses of people. It's become a nightlife, binge eating. The spirit and purpose is completely gone. But it's about, again, like Sister Layla was talking about, you have vices, things you want to get rid of, whether you smoke. I did. Ramadan helped me quit, because if I can go all day without smoking, I can go all night without smoking. All those bad habits can get removed. If you're not praying all the time, this is a perfect opportunity to reset that salah. Get your body attuned to waking up at Fajr. That was always a big one for me, getting up at Fajr. Ramadan helps me to set that schedule and to really get these activities. And I'm already, after 1 week, I feel amazing. The first 2 days, I was a bit sluggish, as I always am. I know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is never going to give me more than I can bear on a single day, a single hour. You get through it. By day 3, I'm smiling all day. I'm happy. My body's set back to where it's supposed to be. I'm reading Quran every day, 1 juz to 2 juz per day. Again, having that remembrance constantly. And that's why I didn't get as much news this week, because again, it's a different kind of month. I'm reading more Quran, I'm reading more hadith than I'm reading about the trash and nonsense that's going on in the world. But I knew there was a presentation, so I did cover the Trump thing to be able to bring that, to you. And then lastly, on our little news here, we had Andrew Tate back in the news again, and he's very indicative of what I just was talking about. He's in Florida, and he's on video again, basically indirectly mocking us, the Muslim community, a man who's professing to be Muslim now for over 2 years. We see he's basically smoking a cigar in the video. The sun is clearly visible in the back. He's in his underwear, sitting at the table with his laptop, smoking and drinking, not a care in the world. And our imams and social media personalities will tell us we need to go easy on him. They've already done this, already on call. They've already done this. He's new. Go easy on him. This is not his first Ramadan. This is not his first rodeo, as the old saying goes. This man's been a Muslim supposedly now for well over 2 years. And we are still seeing this open mockery, of the deen. But again, we should give him a pass. He should basically be celebrated. We see all the Muslim community and imams down in Florida welcome this man with open arms. Another of my favorite Muslims, wink, wink, Sneeko, came out and did a video. He called us the Haram police. He said the Haram police shouldn't reach out to Andrew Tate. Because why? Andrew Tate's going to get angry and he's going to block them. And he made it seem it was so disturbing that Islam just simply would die without Andrew Tate. Where would Islam have been for 1,400 plus years without the contributions of Andrew Tate? I mean, just really unbelievable. The level of just filth coming out of some of these people's mouths. And again, as you can hear, my voice is clear as day. Any imam, any social media personality who promotes this man is not our brother in Islam. He's not an ally. He's not anything positive to us at all. They are a traitor knowingly at this point, a fraud, an opportunist who's seeking to basically deviate us from the path of Allah by heralding this man as a hero, as someone our children should look up to. I chronicled him about 2 months ago, went into his background, showed what he's doing. And you still have these guys coming out here and endorsing him. And then Andrew Tate did a podcast also doing the rounds. And what was he doing during this week? He was praising the governments. The governments where? In the Gulf, for cracking down on extremism. And he called for a moderate Islam. And those familiar with my work, again, have heard me use that word several times over the past few months. That is a buzzword from the Rand Corporation's project, which I chronicled here. That's the end goal, Muslim 2.0, a moderate Islam. He's praising Trump. He's praising this supposed fictitious war on terror. He's saying the Gulf countries, Saudi, Qatar, Kuwait, UAE are amazing in what they have done for the Muslim Ummah by cracking down on extremism and bringing about moderate Islam. So moderate Islam is sitting in your underwear, doing a video, drinking and smoking a cigar right with a visible sun in the back during Ramadan. Being a moderate Muslim is having women, again, sitting next to you, massaging your back while you're doing videos, using every form of filthy language and pornographic language when children and teenagers are watching you. This is the moderate Islam. All you got to do is say you're Muslim, that's it. You're Muslim 2.0 at this point. And again, as clear as my voice, for all those listening, any imam you see who is promoting this man, justifying his actions, any social media influencer, they are not with us. by any means. This man in no way, shape, or form should be an ambassador or a representative of us. He shouldn't even be an ambassador for the lowest of the low of atheists. To be honest, I've met atheists with much better morals and a moral compass than this man, much less someone who is a servant or a self-professed servant of Allah and a follower of his messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that was a brief talk there on the news, some of my perspective and thoughts on Ramadan. And as always, I look forward to continuing discussions with you guys, questions and answers. Format will be a little bit different in Ramadan, obviously, and then we'll get back to more themed presentations as we conclude the month. So.